Well, I'm in beautiful Simi Valley, California. I have the pleasure of sitting down with David Hammer in his beautiful shop.
This is our office. This is our building. This is where we do all of our servicing, and this is where all the cranes come from. And also in Atlanta, we have a location too.
So you have a location in Atlanta as well.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. So.
Well, let's talk about you for a moment and how this all started. How many years you've been in this industry?
Yeah. So I'm first generation. Um, I got in this business, by chance. It was word of mouth, and I was able to work with some guys that are still in the business. One of them being Christian Hurley, Bogdan. Also, I had the pleasure of working with those guys, and worked with them for a few years. And then we ended up merging the company we were at with Panavision Remote Systems.
Okay.
And I spent another 8 years there. And then from there, went to another company and worked a few years there. And I finally figured out that, you know what, I think I got enough experience under my belt to where I can try to do this on my own.
Wow.
But yeah, I was pretty lucky on getting into this business. So, and then I worked my butt off once I did.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're working your ass off with Bogdan and Christian Hurley, which
Brett Folk, all of them.
so you're working with them as a technician, I would
Yeah,
imagine, right?
I was their second back in the day. This was probably 1998, and back then it's when music videos
Yes.
actually had a budget, and we would go from one straight to another. Sometimes just sleeping in the parking lot because the cranes at the time, which was pretty much a 30-foot Techno, 20-foot Techno, were the only things available, and they were hot. And there was only one or two houses to rent them from. So those were the good old days.
Yeah. I
And
remember those days.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, went from there, and then I got lucky with when we went to Panavision Remote Systems, we started doing more feature work.
Okay.
And I was able to meet a lot of great key grips through that. Mike Anderson, Herbalt, Stu Abrams,
yeah.
back in that day, and I learned a lot from them and they helped me to achieve what I've been doing and where I'm at now. So it's been really nice, and I appreciate that and never forgot it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that moment where, you are gaining all this experience being a tech. You're seeing, obviously, that the industry is just consuming these cranes. They just want them all the time. When did that light bulb strike in your head and going, maybe I should get in this game?
Well, again, it was just happened, by chance. There was a person that was a technician, a remote head tech, a Libra head technician.
Okay.
Named Brian Breithaupt, and he had the opportunity to start his own company with Libra heads, and he knew nothing about cranes at the time, and he asked me if I could jump aboard and partner up with him, at least in the crane portion of it, and so that kind of gave me the push.
Okay.
To do it. Yeah, I don't know if I would have done it back then. So that was a good start with Brian at ProCam.
So what was the first crane you purchased?
It was a 3545 Movie Bird.
Smart.
Which was at the time, I thought, the most versatile crane out there.
Mm-hmm.
And still is very versatile. Mainly just because you almost had the same reach as a 50-footer Super Techno, but you had the footprint of a 30-foot Super Techno, and you had options to engage the last section or disengage it. It was really easy to do. So that was a no-brainer at the time, and they're still one of our workhorses.
Right. I mean, buying one of these things is quite expensive. So what was the thought process on purchasing your first one? And
Well, yeah, I definitely didn't have, the means in my bank account to buy one straight out. But and then trying to get a loan for this
Yeah.
was pretty much impossible
Okay.
because the banks would say, hey, we don't know what this is. If
Right.
you want a loan for a tractor, no problem. If you default, we can take that back and resell it. What do we do with a movie bird crane?
Yeah.
No
What is
idea.
it? Yeah.
So sorry, couldn't help you. So movie bird, I hit them up directly, and they were able to provide the financing for us for the first
Wow.
couple of years.
Okay.
So that was a huge plus, and that was
Wow.
a big start.
Yeah. So you're getting some really good breaks throughout this.
Yeah,
Matter.
and the breaks that I was getting for the cranes, it's they also went on the previous years of the experience I've had, and the jobs I've done. So it wasn't like someone coming off the streets asking for a movie bird crane.
Right.
So they knew someone, myself, was coming with them and said, this is what I can present. This is where I can take this crane, and hopefully we can keep going with it. So they knew it was a plus for them also.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they want to move their product along too.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's move forward on that. So now you have your first crane. You're getting calls. Things are developing, and now it's reinvesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Never ending.
Right.
So back in the day, there were just 30-foot crane, and then a 20-foot crane. Nowadays, there are multiple sizes. I can't keep up with it. And sadly, yeah, you have to invest. If you want to be able to do a feature, you got to be able to cater to all their needs. So whether it's a 10-foot crane that hardly ever gets used, to a 62-foot crane, and all in between, there's probably more than a dozen different sizes
Right. Right.
from multiple different companies.
Right.
So it, I pull my hair out trying to keep up, and now it is what it is. Do I have it? It'd be great to say yes, but if not, it is what it is. This is what I have.
Yeah. And how many do you have?
We have 19 telescopic cranes. And
Wow.
varying, like I said, 10-footer, 12-footer, 15-footer, 22-footer, 23-footer, 30-footer, 35, 38,
Right.
45, 50, 62. So it's never ending.
So you're constantly adapting to the request. You're
Yes.
reinvesting and getting more cranes. And
Yes.
I understand you're also in Atlanta as well.
True. So again, yeah, being able to handle two facilities can be a little difficult. I'm consider myself more of a mom and pop's shop.
Right.
So it's me, my wife. She runs the booking, handles all the paperwork, deals with production, which she's been doing great since we started, and it's me doing the promoting, the advertising, getting out there, and I'm still on set.
Yeah.
Majority of my time and work is on set because I enjoy what I do, and I still have a relationship with the people that hire me, and so and I need to keep that relationship because that's the main reason why we do get employed is having that relationship with certain people.
Right.
So looks out nice.
Sounds great working with your wife. You guys are obviously, she's learning from the beginning. She's learning the business.
And
she's learning your business
yes,
and supporting you, supporting each other.
right, and it's never ending learning.
Right.
Especially when it comes to equipment. She's learning. When it comes, hey, so we need this equipment or we need that, and we'll call each other up. We have each other's back to hey, how much does this thing weigh? What's the width of this base?
Yeah, they're asking me these questions.
Right. I mean, we can have all this information on our website, but they still manage to want to call and ask directly, which is great. Fine. It's still love having those conversations. But I don't. I can't keep all that information in my head. So sometimes I have to go back. Let me get back to you, and I'll get you that info. So.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned, when we'll dive into it, you mentioned movies.
Mm-hmm.
So would like to know some of the credits, some of the shows that you worked on.
I guess the first one, I think, was my first union one when I actually got into the union, because I think I was working in the business for about 2 years before I was able to join the union. And that one was The Grinch That Stole Christmas.
Oh yeah.
I think it was in 1999 we were shooting that. That was with Mike Anderson.
Okay.
And he was an amazing person to watch, in action, and such a nice person to work for. So, and I still call him up once in a while, and he's still doing the same thing,
That's
kicking
great.
butt. So that was that. And again, talking about getting into the union. So
Yes.
at that time, I was going to join Local 80,
Okay.
and then back in those days, we were very involved with camera. We were the ones that brought the Preston out and set that up, set the remote head up. So we were very hands-on at that time.
Right.
So there was incident that happened on Perfect Storm. It was filming the same time we were doing The Grinch, and the camera department needed to do something with the camera that was on the crane, and the crane technicians were there to assist. But then somebody from the grip department says nobody touches that crane until the dolly grip shows up, even though it wasn't in a shot, it was just strapped off. And so they had a discussion between Local 80, Local 600, and they determined the crane is a Local 80 piece of equipment. It's a grip piece of equipment. But the technicians that come with it at the time work with cameras so much that they should be in 600.
Wow. So you're being kind of
Yeah, I was
proven-
going either. Yeah.
Am I going to local 80? Am I going 600?
So they determined, the techs were 600, but the crane was an 80 piece of equipment. So normally, if we were, the way it was written on paper, we would drive up, drop the gate, and it was the grips would grab it, do everything they want, and we would make sure it'd be run safely.
Oh, so they're the ones that unloaded it at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it never went that far.
Yeah,
Because we were all, we all worked as a team.
Okay.
And there was another thing that the grip department really didn't want that responsibility. They had so much other things going on. So with this specialty piece of equipment that they didn't work with every single day, they didn't really care to have that responsibility. The people I worked with. So that's how I got into 600.
Okay.
So did most of the other guys, and we did work a lot with the camera department back in those days. A little different. It's definitely different now, but yeah, that's how that went.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's talk about the camera for a second. Every year I'm seeing new heads, new pieces of technology around the camera. How do you adapt? How do you stay with all those changes?
You kind of just go with the flow. I mean, when you said the new changes, I think that the new remote heads, say the M7 from Chapman or the Matrix that's out there, both amazing remote heads. But when it comes to putting them on cranes, there's something you have to get used to. They're much heavier.
Yeah.
But they're amazing remote heads. So we have to figure out how we can put more weight on these cranes to balance them with certain camera packages
Right.
that go on to them.
Longer lenses.
Yeah, so a regular camera package, no problem. But something bigger, they have to put counterweight on there. And so now it makes everything else heavy. So we have to adapt to that. And so does the dolly grip, because now the crane gets heavier, everything. So that, other than that, there's things also have been getting lighter. There's also other remote heads out there that make our job a little easier too. But I welcome the change. That remote head, that 4-axis head that's an amazing remote head.
Right.
So I think that's going to be around for a while. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we talked about the camera, we talked about the heads, we talked about the arms. What about the bases? What do you do differently than maybe other people don't?
So I think what we did different, and it started back in 2014, was our first off-road base that we made was all electric.
Wow.
Yeah, and this was in 2014, and the person that convinced us to do it and built it was Alan Padelford.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so
Legend.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, still is, and he convinced us to do this, and we're like, everything's diesel, and there wasn't lithium batteries back then, at least that we can get, and so we gave it a shot, and it's been amazing. I mean, we've he put two electric motors in this thing, and then it had the Rover, and that one we had built in 2014, and it was the first all electric base. And Alan Padelford is the one that built it for us, and he's the one that convinced us to go electric. And back in that day, it was deep cycle batteries.
Okay.
I don't know what the option was for lithium, but we didn't have that option at the time. And that base was amazing. It still is amazing. We use it all the time. And now from there we build more bases, but we try to stay electric. It's just the torque, the power that we can get from there, and also being quiet. So a lot of our bases we can do walk and talk. So
Right.
I can turn a 30-foot crane into a 500-foot
Yeah.
crane
Yeah.
just by driving the base
Wow. That quiet.
because it's silent. Yeah, and it has the batteries also power up the crane, so it's all self-sufficient. So those have been great shots. We call them walk and talks. So that's been a big plus, and we're trying to build off that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then for our bigger cranes, our 62-footer, we built another electric base. We actually used a Tesla motor, Tesla
Really?
batteries.
Wow.
I don't know if I'd ever do that again, but we're still in the process of finishing that, and that one is going to be very impressive also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so
Cool.
yeah,
You
thanks.
sound very proud. I love it. Like a proud papa with all the children, the cranes. It's and how it was born and how they are kept.
You know what? We're very proud of the things that we've been able to build here because, most other products that out there, it's something that a company specialized in that has built it, not any particular rental house, like myself. So being able to build these things, and sometimes seeing, we can have some of our, companies that we purchase from and see our product and say, wow, this is very interesting. This is something that, wish that we would have built and
Okay.
sold to you guys.
Well, that's cool. The
Yeah.
people that made it, the manufacturers that made it, are looking at what you're doing with it.
Yeah, and they
They're
said they
very
haven't
impressed.
seen it from any other rental house.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why we've been able to do that is just I found some, amazing fabricators. In Atlanta we have a fabrication shop, and this guy is, yeah, he's a great find.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, if it wasn't for the talent of these people, just using a mill, a lathe, minimal CNC, and what they can do, it just blows my mind. So I'm just there to kind of give them a concept and
Yes.
say, we need this, we don't need that. And, after a lot of R&D, which can hurt the wallet,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bet.
yeah, we come out with a pretty good product for ourselves.
Yes, yes, you have.
Yeah, thanks.
I know that the first time I heard about you was actually through your swag. The Hammer Camera Crane Company. The Miller High Life
Right.
insignia, or the band, the one that you're wearing, is very popular. And flashed across us
That's funny.
between the shirts and
Yeah.
the hats. So, where do some of those ideas come from?
And it's funny, I started passing out swag, personal swag, before I ever had my own business, before there was ever a Hammer Camera Cranes.
Really, like,
Yeah, so when I was working at Panavision Remote Systems, we could go to the Pana store to get shirts to give to the grip department, camera department.
right.
Well, suddenly we couldn't do that anymore, but I still wanted to give something out, and my last name was catchy, especially for the grip department.
Of course.
And so
it's a classic last name.
yeah, so I think the first advertisement was just like a silhouette of a hammer,
Okay.
on a hat or things like that, and just went from there. But I would just make my own little personal swag to pass out to to the crew because the, say, at Panavision remote system, it wasn't as available as it used to be.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's how that started. And I just, you know, it's funny how swag, you know, how little it is, how far it can go, and how appreciated people would be. And when I would do shows, I try to handle everybody, not just the grip department. You know, hey,
Right.
what about your riggers? What about, you know, construction? What about the people in the production office? You know, so that's where I think, you know, the swag started getting out there, just because I kind of felt bad just handing it to one department
Right,
and
right.
then not the other, because I would, you know, somehow way or another during the show, you know, have a relationship or talk with every department on there. They, you know, we all help each other out. So
They're constantly ask, can I get some swag?
that would happen, and that's sometimes the reason why we pass it out towards
Yeah.
the end of the show.
No, it's cool because, you know, it's one of those badge of honor, you know, when you're wearing a company like yourself with the reputation that that company has. And you're like, yeah, I got a Hammer hat, I got a Hammer shirt. It's really cool, you know,
Yeah, and
to represent a company that may not know you, but they know the company and what it stands for.
yeah, and I really appreciate that they're, you know, they're actually wearing it.
How do you stay above the competition?
Um, I don't know, but if it is about staying above the competition,
Okay.
I think it's more of the way I can stay busy
Okay.
is pretty much the relationships I have with, you know, certain people, you know, mainly key grips,
Right.
DPs, you know, few production, but those relationships and my work ethics,
Yes.
I would say, help me stay, you know, or keep me where we are. And I have a few other technicians that, you know, work for us that I hope you know, they come with me on set and see the way that I do it, and, you know, they pick up on it and do the same.
You know, so you're getting calls from your technicians going, "Oh my God, this is happening," and then you're there to relax,
Yeah,
make
just
sure
talk
you
them to it.
talk you through it, and
Yeah.
then they gain their experience, and then you have better technicians that are surrounding you.
Exactly. Yeah, and it makes my life much easier. I'm getting far less phone calls now. Far less. There's some times where we have new pieces of equipment, like, you know, bases. Like just last night, you know, I got a call. We have the 62-foot with the new stage base we built, electric
Yes.
base that you used on the train.
Beautiful.
And, you know, the guy that I had going out on it, he's only used it a couple times, and so, you know, right out of the gate, he gave me a call, just like, hey, you know, there's a few buttons here that so it still happens, but it's because it's new equipment.
Right.
He got through the job, you know, easily, but I kind of expected it just because of that. And, you know, we'll go through it more with him and, you know, make sure that we don't get too many phone calls, because they don't want to be giving the phone calls either.
I'm sure they don't, but it's at some point they're like, I got to call David and
Yeah.
get these answers so I don't
Right.
look embarrassed by the situation. All right, well, we're getting through it pretty fast here. Well, we talked about the past. We talked a little bit about the present. What's the future for Hammer Crane Company?
Well, we're not going anywhere, so, you know, we'll be around for a while.
Okay, that's good.
I love what I do. You know, the goal is to, you know, I'm 53 right now, and, you know, keep going on set as much as I can, but until 62 or 60, I don't know what the retirement age is, but even at that, you know, maybe spend less time on set and more time in the shop. But, you know, things are different, you know, compared to back in the day where, you know, music videos had a budget, features were left and right, and now these days are I say strange, you know, when
Yeah.
it comes to, you know, work in general. And so, like I say, for my son works with me now,
Great.
and, you know, kind of, I was hesitant on bringing him into the business
Why?
because of just how the business is right now.
Okay.
You know, will he be able to get enough work to survive? And what made me feel comfortable about bringing him in is that he had, you know, another talent. He went to trade school, So he knows he's got a certifications in welding
Oh,
and
wow.
things like that.
That's great.
So this he's not stuck if this isn't working out for him. So that was a plus. And it's now seeing what I see now and what I'm going through now, having a second or third trade is huge,
Yes.
especially for the people in this industry. They talk to him when it comes to updating, the programs on the crane or the software. He knows when it comes to that, he knows more than I do.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he's
yeah.
become an asset.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So again, I plan on keeping this still like a family-run business, and try to keep my overhead as low as possible to be able to get through tough times like this.
Okay.
And we seem to be doing fine.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good,
we could be
good.
doing better, but
We can all be doing better.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing some new things around me, and just wanted to can't not talk about the elephant in the room. This beautiful thing behind you.
Oh,
this green
yeah.
thing. This
Yeah.
this beautiful little white thing.
Yeah,
right
these
here.
things behind me.
Yeah. You want to talk about that a little bit?
So yeah, again, diversified when it comes to the business. I was able to work with a buddy of mine that pointed me in this direction with these. These are mobile battery packs,
Wow.
and they have the one behind me here is a 100 kilowatt battery pack with an 18,000 watt inverter. Also comes on tracks, and has a remote control. So it has 350 amp outs and a bunch of just regular other 20 amp outlets. And I haven't really pushed it yet in the business. We've been actually pushing them in under other industries.
Okay.
I've yet to hit up my gaffer buddies to see if they can try these things out on, say, if they're at the beach,
Right.
or in a rugged area. That's where I saw that they might come in handy, to where they need power at a certain location, but it's not very close to the power plant.
Right.
And they're completely silent, so that's another plus. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see. It's a new venture for me, and yeah, I got these little guys too. These are cool little ones. I ended up putting a Jaeger cart on top of one and tried it out, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
worked amazing, like in the
Really?
sand, and yeah, it was fun. So it gets a lot of looks, but this is also personal use. I could take it out to the beach, take it out to, if I go to Pomona Swap Meet, little wagon on it.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
a head turn. We'll see how that goes. I'll keep pushing it. And if any gaffers are watching, hit me
Yeah.
up.
Hit
I'd
up
love to show you
Hammer.
what these things can do.
That'd be great. Let's talk about some of the most unique camera shots that you helped create. Let's talk about some really cool, maybe some locations, some crane move that you're very proud of for whatever reason. You want to dive into that a little bit?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind, it was on War of the Worlds, the Steven
Oh,
Spielberg
okay.
one. And I came in just day playing, but there was this one particular shot that we had to rehearse. It was like we were our own little unit, just rehearsing for this one shot. And it was myself, the dolly grip was Mango,
Okay.
the operator was Mitch Dubin, and I'm sure there's some other people in there that helped that I can't remember. But the shot was of Tom Cruise, the family, driving in the minivan, going, on the highway, dodging traffic or whatever. And we had a 15-foot Super Techno on a high base maybe or something. And the van was on a gimbal, a hydraulic gimbal, so it could move around. And the back of the van could be detached, like it's like the window and hatch portion. So what we did was take the crane and the dolly on, I think it was dance floor they had laid out, and we went and did a complete 360 around this van, and as we got towards the back, they pulled off the back section so we can actually go in.
Oh,
So
that's
there was
cool.
no CG involved in
Oh, so
that
they wiled
portion.
that out after you finished coming off of it?
Yeah, and then
Oh, that's
as we
cool.
went back to the passenger, we had the back section went back on, and I think I had a total of 20 marks just for myself.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we ended up rehearsing it on our own Thursday and Friday. The main unit had nothing to do with it. They were on their own somewhere else. And then they said, you know what, why don't you come in? And then come in Saturday. And then they said, you know what, you should come in Sunday and rehearse it because this is the only thing we're going to do all day on Monday. So we did. We practiced those 4 days. And on Monday, we had the whole crew.
Yeah. All eyes on you.
Spielberg, Jim Kalkowski, he was the key grip there.
Uh-huh.
Janish, and they planned to do this shot, all day. Because I think in the movie, it lasted a few minutes. I don't remember how much, but it was a long scene. So we did it, our first take, and Spielberg saw it, and he's like, "Okay, what do we do now?"
Because you nailed it.
We actually got it right there. We ended up doing it a couple more times.
Yeah. The same thing or some variations off of it? Or?
It was pretty much the same
Okay.
thing, but it was pretty memorable when
Yeah.
we saw his look and says, "Okay,
You nailed it.
yeah, we got it." And like again, Mango, Mitch Dubin. It was a great team
Yeah.
on there. So that was another shot. Again, when I was talking about doing the walk and talks, I can't remember the title of the movie, but it was DP was Maddie Lebetit, key grip was Tana Dube, and this was the first time we've ever did a walk and talk, but then we did a quick release. So we had our Rover, our electric bass with I think it was my 50-foot, movie bird, and the scene was following two ladies, going to it looked like a concert in the park.
Okay.
And we ended up following them, and then we panned over to the stage where there was the performers, the rock band, and then we extended all the way out to the stage. And as we got there, we quick disconnect with the Ronin, and they were able to go around. When they disconnect, we retract it really quick, and then we were able to get out of the shot.
Drive out of the shot.
And then they were able to do a complete 360.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't remember the name of the movie, but I do remember the shot. So that was the first time we did something like that.
The Star is Born? A Star is Born?
No.
Okay.
Maybe I will, I'll think about it and
call
text
me
it to you,
and text it to you.
and let you know what it was.
So that's funny you said that, and we'll go back to your shots. That's probably one of the things I was talking about is, the disconnect now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was nothing, there was nothing like that before.
No.
Now we're disconnecting and we're doing these really cool, complicated shots from crane to disconnecting and being on foot with the camera.
Yeah, and that goes with, cameras and some remote heads getting much lighter. So, you've got your Ronin remote heads. And what are these little cameras again?
Little GoPros?
GoPros, things like that. We used a lot of Reds back then.
Right.
So it made it easier for us to take the remote head off and be able to still, handle the weight, because that is a weight difference. I mean, they would maybe put a bag on the end of it, but after that, to be able to carry that equipment around, I think it was 2 grips that did that. It's nice to be light.
Nice.
So, and at that time, that's, that was offered back then. So
that's cool.
So the key grips or the DPs, think of these pretty cool shots.
Yeah, I love those moments when you get on a show like that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's go back to the question I was asking about, the uniqueness of some of the shots that you participated in, something that stands out, whether it's either weather related, location, or maybe even putting this thing in a very unusual situation. Maybe can you reflect back on any of those moments?
Yeah, I mean, there was one time we were working on Training Day.
Okay.
With, I think you just interviewed,
with Stu. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Stu. And There was a time where we needed to put a 30-foot Super Techno onto the top of a 2-story apartment building
Okay.
for some of the scenes. And so, the rigging grips ended up getting our track and building, 30 feet of track, a deck out there and putting the track up there, and we can place the crane up there with a construction crane. I think that was pretty unique, at least for me. Other ones was we took a crane back in the day where we would travel a lot. We took a crane to Morocco.
You took a crane to Morocco?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
We did a movie called Hidalgo.
Okay. Oh, wow. Cool.
And the key grip was Bob Babin,
Okay.
which is still in the business,
Yep.
going strong. And who was the dolly grip was Jimmy Lightholt. And the grip department ended up making their own kind of like shop maker theme, but they called it the shop faker.
The shop faker.
Yeah, they ended up building one here and put it in a container. It was like an F-150 pickup truck.
Okay.
Flatbed, and built a post that you could,
Yeah,
level it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it worked amazing. It was
Oh, good.
4-wheel drive, and we were out in the Sahara Desert, and got a lot of cool shots with it.
Right.
But that was very memorable. We don't travel as much anymore because of how popular these cranes got. They're
Right.
everywhere now.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
So we pretty much stay in the States.
Gotcha.
So that was cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. And any last story you want to throw out there? Is that
No, I mean, there's a show coming out that we
Yeah.
just,
please?
it's called Sinners.
Okay. Yes.
And that one there, I think today is the release.
Yes, it is.
And again, we had to work with some, the camera package was IMAX or Panavision 65 with 1,000-foot mags. And so you got to know what equipment is needed to do this. And we needed some extra large stabilized remote heads to be able to handle those camera packages. And we have some that was provided by a company I use called Opertech. They're out of Ukraine.
Okay.
And these remote heads were perfect for what we needed on that. And again, they did some walk and talks on that show with the Rover base, 50-footer. We had our 62 out there a few times, but those were some really tough conditions. The key grip was Miguel Benavides.
Nice. Oh, yeah.
But he knew exactly what to do with the equipment. So, this is where we need you. This is what I need. And it made our lives easier, other than the weather. In Louisiana, it was humid as could be.
Wow.
It was that was a tough gig for, I only spent a week out there, but the rest of the guys, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
if you were to do this all over again, would you still do what you're doing now?
pretty much, yeah. I think if I was to change anything, maybe do it sooner.
Okay.
But I just, like you said, it's a tough business to be in, especially, rental house with these particular pieces of equipment that are very original and pricey.
Yeah.
So it was, that was a big leap to do. So that would have probably been the change, since knowing now what could have known then. So the confidence that I've built up to do what I'm doing now. So I wish I would have done it sooner.
Right.
Is my final answer.
Well, your journey seems to be very blessed, with people along the way, that, including your wife, to have such a strong relationship and a great backup.
Oh yeah. She, we've been married 25 years, and
Right.
I'm sure also this is a tough business for family.
Yes.
And I mean, she's been a lifesaver. She's a big part of this business now, since we started our own company. And so, again, she deals with production, things like that. And it's kind of a blessing also. We get to communicate more, keeps us, connected, in the good and bad times.
Yes.
But it's at least, communication that we're able to talk to each other.
No, that's great, because you can lean on each other like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for your beautiful cranes. Thank you for your professionalism when you come on the set. I've worked with you a number of times, and it's always been consistent.
Great. Well, hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you sitting down
Yep.
with me.
Yep, for
All
sure.
right, great. Thank you.